Hi, welcome to DramaMeans. We're talking about the 2024 Hong Kong Chinese movie High Forces. Today, drama means action, drama means suspense, and drama means a lot of, if you say so.
And now a summary. When a group of vicious hijackers take over a luxury airliner, an embattled security officer becomes a one-man wrecking crew to take them down and save his estranged wife and child, who are also aboard. Now, before we jump into it today, this is going to be our penultimate episode of the season of the 2024 DramaMeans season, which means next week is going to be our season finale, where we are going to kind of go through what we loved, what we hated, the mistakes we made, the judgments we misjudged over the whole year of all the dramas we watched and dropped and all that nonsense. So please make sure you tune in for that next week on the podcast, and then we'll be taking our long-awaited holiday break and seeing all of you again in 2025.
As for the movie goes, it was actually filmed and completed filming in 2021, but it didn't premiere until 2024.
Was there a reason it sat on the shelf? Was there struggles financially? Was there drama? Like, what was the holdup?
I actually have no idea. I don't know if it was like, maybe it was an Andy Lau scheduling thing or like, I mean, 2021 was like right in the middle of COVID. So that could have
Yeah, it could have had a huge impact, yeah.
Yeah, or editing or whatever.
Well, I mean, even in America, they pushed a lot of movies. I mean, the Top Gun Maverick stayed on the shelf for a long time, and rather than streaming it, they held it so they could release it in the theaters. And, also being able to promote the movie is not a small thing. Like, you couldn't promote worldwide a movie in 2021. Like, half the world shut down. You couldn't go do junkets and premieres and stuff. And so that really hurts the movie's performance. I don't think people really realize.
Yeah. So, but it was in theaters. It released in October of 2024. So.
And it looks like, from what I can tell, did pretty decent. Like, I don't know if this is a huge, massive hit, but it seemed like from the few things I read that this movie did pretty well.
I think it did pretty well. I think a lot of critics hated this movie. And we will get into why that is in a little bit. But we actually went to the theaters to watch this, and for me, it was fun. Like, I was engaged. It didn't lose my interest or anything. So, yeah, I think it's a good mindless watch.
Yeah, I think sometimes critics have a hard time understanding what kind of movie they're watching. Like, they walk into everything expecting it to be Gone with the Wind. And you're like, no, this is a fun, kind of cheesy action movie. It's kind of almost a throwback to those 90s, those Liam Neeson movies to bring it out of the 90s. But, like, they're not supposed to be taken all that seriously. They need to be competent. They need to be fun. They need to not be utterly ridiculous for most of it, which this one, walked a fine line there at the end. But I feel like this is kind of one of those movies that falls into the characterization of, like, dumb fun. Like, entertain me. Don't bore me. Show me things I haven't seen before.
Yeah. I really liked the beginning where they didn't really dwell a whole lot on the family situation. They got through the emotions and his background through like a quick montage. And like we immediately got what was like the issue, and we understood that they're estranged. And it's just and then through, at the airport when like she's always looking for him, like they're not as estranged as the montage kind of showed, but it was good, quick, and like, gets to the point.
And didn't feel the need to do one of those stupid, like, cut to the middle of the action and then flash back to the beginning because you're trying to hook us. Like, I'm so sick of that. And I feel like the bread and butter for me when I watch these kind of movies was the 90s and 2000s, where they let the movie open. They introduce you to the characters. They introduce you to the conceit of the movie, the guy with the shifty eyes that's going to come back later, and the kid with the toy who's playing around on the plane, and they introduce all of the elements before the action comes in, and then it uses all the pieces of the animal rather than going gun to head, you know, plane's about to crash. What are you going to do, tough guy? And then we flash back 16 hours earlier. And you're like, it's such a stupid bait and switch, and I fucking hate it. And so it was nice that this movie kind of gave us a more traditional buildup. Let us get to know the characters and then pull it all apart.
Yeah, it was in a linear way, which like we understand linear storytelling. I don't know why. I know they want to be like different and like innovative. And it might have been innovated like, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, but it's no longer innovative. So I'm just
You mean
also
starting with the action out of nowhere, like out
yeah,
of context? Yeah.
yeah, like a flash forward and then like back to, flashback or whatever.
I mean, I think it comes from like this idea that no one has an attention span unless you just like punch them in the face in the first 4 minutes. People are going to click next, or people are going to walk out of the theater or change the channel or whatever. So we all have to be so interesting in the first 4 minutes or lose the audience. And it's like, well, I'm going into a theater to see it. Trust me, I'm going to sit down for the first 20 minutes. I'll be here.
Yeah. I also like that, like, there's no confusion on who the bad guy is. Like, you don't have to spend, like, 30, 40 minutes trying to hide who's the bad guy, and then, like, the audience and, like, everyone has to guess who the bad guy is. It really just fucking jumps right in.
Yeah, they were trying to hide the ball on it. I did think for a second that the CEO of the company was going to be in on it because he
Okay.
mentions like they're trying to expand and like they're in financial trouble, and it's like, oh, then he's ransoming $500 million out of the company. I'm like, oh, is the CEO actually like pulling this off and is like just playing, no, please don't shoot me? So I thought maybe they'd go that direction, but they really didn't feel the need to kind of play that game. Like it wasn't a who's the baddie, what's the twist. It was just kind of like straightforward, in your face. Here's
Yeah.
what the movie is. Take it or leave it.
Yeah. It's like not, that's not the point. That wasn't like the
Mm-hmm.
reason. The point is, you know, Andy Lau's character kind of redeeming himself, and then like honestly, it's all just about him saving his family, and it's just kind of like very relatable in terms of like what matters most to somebody.
Yeah, and it's definitely redeeming himself in the eyes of his daughter more than anything else. Like this isn't about getting his career back on track. You know what I mean? Like this, there's nothing about this motivation that is like, oh, I need to like save the world and protect my job and like prove to people that I still got it. Like it was no, my daughter doesn't like love me anymore, and I need that back. And we're gonna go through a hijacking together, and that's how I'm gonna earn it back.
Yeah, and also it's like not him just like talking about it and explaining everything and like begging for her forgiveness. It's like literally like she gets firsthand of why he's been missing when he's missing, and like just really understanding like what had happened all those years you know
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like it's kind of nice. It's not about like you know him sitting her down and just like saying like, oh, this is what happened. Again, it's showing and not telling.
Yeah, they have remarkably few scenes together
Yeah.
for them being like the crux relationship of the whole thing, but you still do get it. And I'm not saying that this is a movie that makes you cry, but you do completely understand the emotions of the characters, especially the main three, the wife, the daughter, and Andy Lau's character. You understand all three of them and where they're coming from. Do you have to feel it? You could. You could feel it. You could really relate to it. But again, it's not the kind of movie that's trying to make you cry about it. It just wants you to understand the motivation. And that's good enough.
So this kind of reminds me a little bit of that Liam Neeson movie.
I don't remember what the movie was called, where he's on the plane and he's like the air marshal and the guy's like, I'm going to kill people, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and then like all of a sudden there's this like random Julianne Moore's character like helping him and like kind of like also being a hero and kind of thing, and then he also has some kind of flight attendant that's like...
Well, he gets together with a flight attendant at the beginning who basically is like, what the hell's going on? And they kind of like figure out together that the plane has been hijacked.
Yeah. So it does remind me a little bit of that movie, but I'm just really glad that, like, his wife doesn't also become, like, one of the heroes and, like, or, like, the daughter just, like, saves the day and becomes, like, a total badass or something like that, because it's just not... It's not real.
Well, it's not their place. Like, it would just be like the family of Rambo suddenly. Like what?
Yeah.
Like badassery just runs in the family. Like, yeah. I also enjoyed that the daughter could help out in a way that felt organic. Like it was obviously very set up with, you know, her and the toy communicator and stuff like that. But again, if you're going to set that up and then you pay it off and you use it in an organic way, it's part of the film. Do you buy the conceit of the beginning of it? Maybe not. It's a little convenient, but she helped him in a way that felt like the way she should have helped him. She didn't solve everything, but she could give him like key pieces of information and actually like make the difference in a couple of small areas.
Yeah. And also, like, you know, it gives them, you know, participation credit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're just not footballs that are as helpless, you know?
Yeah. But also, like, I like that it's not that they're so, like, hidden.
I mean, the threat to him.
Yeah.
Like, they're not gun to their head first 5 minutes in the movie and the bad guy's like, come out or I'll kill your wife. Like,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah. No, I think they used it at the right times. Like, they discover who he is at the right time. Definitely stealing a page out of Die Hard's book of, like, finding the picture and discovering who he is and who they are. And now we can put the gun to their head and force them out. But then he kind of gets the upper hand on them and it kind of goes back and forth. And then, obviously, the big jeopardy at the end for everyone. I think structurally, this is actually a pretty sound, like, action movie. You're like, it's not a $500 million, like, perfectly crafted action movie that's been in development for 10 years. Like, it's a good, solid action movie. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. I kind of keep saying that, but, like, let's look at it for what it is and not compare it to things that aren't. Like,
yeah.
Like, I love movies like this. Like, I grew up on movies like this one. So I kind of have a lot of respect for it. And I do think the makers of this movie like movies like this. I'm sure they watched some Steven Seagal movies and some Wesley Snipes action movies in the 90s and 2000s to make this film.
Yeah.
And they've all seen Taken, I guarantee you.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty big one. I think one of my favorite scenes is, like, him dropping into the bathroom to save his wife.
Where the dude just comes to the door.
Yeah, and all you see is the guy flying out of the door, and it's just so badass. And we didn't even have to see the fight.
No, it was really smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the structure of this, too, was really interesting. They did something I'd never seen before, which is it's a hijacking, but it's a multi-level plane, right? There's 2 or 3 different stories on this plane. It's a huge jumbo jet. And the hijackers, which I thought was smart, only hijack as much of the plane as they need to. So they only hijack, like, business class. So everyone in coach has no idea their plane's been hijacked.
Well, was it business class or first class?
Well, it was whatever. It was the upper class. Whatever it was, the better class.
Yeah.
But an economy. But they get hijacked first, and everyone, you know, downstairs has no idea that's happening upstairs. So as a hijacker, it feels smart, like you can control the situation, but then it allowed our good guy to be smart and figure it out. I've never quite seen that. Normally when you see a hijacking movie, just the whole plane erupts into chaos, and now the 20 hijackers have to, like, keep guns on the entire plane. So I thought it was kind of cool. It worked in steps. And then the bad guy got to decide, all right, we're all in, take coach.
Yeah.
And then they took that part of the plane too.
And it was kind of nice to see how he was able to pick them off one by one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that really helps with, like, the fact that, like, they hadn't acted in coach yet.
Mm-hmm.
Or economy.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Same thing.
Yeah. So I did enjoy that.
I think being able to take them out and then him, like, discovering the parachutes and actually having something to bargain with, like a bargaining chip that he can go, hey, if you keep killing people, I'm going to kill your exit plan. And I thought that was nice because, again, I don't think you see that many hijacking movies where the hero has any leverage whatsoever on the hijackers.
Yeah.
And so definitely the guy like was still shooting people, was still being a dick, but he had something to bargain with.
Yeah. And as you said before, that you've never seen in a lot of the um American movies or the Western movies, like they are really careful not to kill off too many of the passengers.
Yeah, the bystander killings. Like, we have a weird morality, right? Where it's like, all right, they can kill one or two of the passengers, but if they kill like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, then we start blaming our hero for not saving enough people. In American movies, it feels like you don't get away with offing that many passengers. And I think sometimes Asian films, especially Hong Kong cinema, like just doesn't care. Like they're gonna off some civilians in this, and you're just like, what do you want the hero to do? Like, what do you want him to do? He's doing what he can. So like, we're not gonna hate the hero because he didn't save everybody.
Yeah.
But I do think they did a good job in this film. He only cares about his family. He's not really trying to be a hero to save the plane necessarily throughout the film. Like, he's jumping at the chance to save his family. That's it. And is it selfish? Yes. Do I really hold it against him? Not really.
Yeah, because it's relatable. If you were in the situation, like, you care most about your loved ones.
Yeah, you would trade a random passenger's life for the life of your wife and child. Like, come on. Yes, you would. Oh, no, that's a horrible decision to make. Yeah, it's a horrible situation, of course. It's a crazy situation, but you would. You'd do it.
Yeah. He also said he didn't want to kill anybody, but he had to kill the hijackers, But when, like, there are times when he didn't kill them, and it really came back to, like,
Yeah.
bite him in the ass. So
I would say, like, overall, the first 3/4 of this movie, for me, paced well, structured well, coherent, like cohesive, using all the parts of the animal they set up and paying it off. And the bad guys are smart, and I think he's smart, and it's just kind of satisfying. Now there are some bad points.
well, I had a hard time with the action in general because honestly, out of like all the action movies we've been watching and like the predecessors of this movie, the action has been quite terrible. Like lots of close ups where you literally can't tell what's going on, just lots of like fast, cuts in the editing, and then just like really, really close up. And I kind of blame the fact that Andy Lau is at a certain age and he just can't move the same way he used to. I feel like if it was him in his prime or even like 20 years ago, you would see him do a lot more action. And albeit he does a lot of action in this, but he would take a lot more risks and you would see it more of in a wider angle.
Yeah, we see that in the Liam Neeson movies. Like, Taken, when we think about it, Liam Neeson became this action star in his late 50s. Or I don't exactly know how old he is, but and he's been doing it for like a decade now. And so, like, he's an old man fighting in these action movies now, and you can see that he's an old man sometimes. But I will agree that in this movie, the action is too close, the camera is too close, the camera moves too much, and because it's close, that's a problem, and it's way over edited. And so there was times where I'm like, wait, who hit who? Who slammed who? Who stabbed who? Wait, who got shot? And you can't tell until the action sequence kind of has a pause, and they literally pull the camera back. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. That guy just got his neck broke. I'm like, but it's not good action. I would say, like, it's frenetic if that's your style. But if you really want to see what's going on and you want to like appreciate like a slick fight or even a brutal fight, I think the Pang brothers have always been like brutality is like their kind of calling card sometimes, like with the horror genres, and like they're not afraid to show some blood and guts. So there was definitely some stuff in this movie that was brutal and violent. A lot of it just didn't play because of it being so close.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's probably some of it is to cover up an aging actor. But I do think there's other ways to do it. Get a double in there and find the stuff he can do, and then build your fights around it so you can show us something. Because as much as they not told us a lot about the plot and the character development, they didn't show us much of the action. It felt pretty lost.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if like Andy Lau uses doubles.
I mean, every actor uses doubles.
I'm sure he has. It's just I know he's such a perfectionist that I feel like most of the time he tries to do most of his own stunts.
I've also read that about him, and I think that's probably true. He does as much as he can. I've never worked with an actor who insisted on doing everything. They all kind of know their limitations and go, oh, they even show up to set and be like, oh, I'll do that. And then you walk them through it and go, oh, no, 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 maybe that's a double thing. Because either they have to be able to say lines, they can't break their necks. They have to still be able to act. And so even the toughest, hardest nosed, stubbornest actors I've ever worked with will take a step back and let the professionals step in if they can't do something, or if they feel like they're slowing the movie down, or if they feel like they look like crap. They would much rather look cool than look like crap.
Yeah, I just know that this also may be a reason why Andy Lau action has kind of slowed down a little bit. Is a few years ago he was filming a period movie and he had a severe fall off of a horse.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in the hospital for a long time and it really threatened paralysis on him.
Right.
And so I feel like maybe after that he's been a little bit more careful.
Well, also, he may have lagging injuries. I mean, you don't have an injury like that at that age and just get up and go, I'm fine. You have back injuries. Stunt people are broken when they get to be in their 50s. It's hard on your body. So you walk different. I mean, look at professional athletes in their 50s. They don't got no toes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that also kind of excuses a little bit of the action. Not all of it though.
Yeah, I think they could have done better. I mean, it was exciting, but it just wasn't what it could have been. It was a little disappointing, I would say, more than oh man, action in this. The fights are great. The fights are okay. They're fine. I would say Oxide Pang as a director, I kept noticing the kind of horror creep keep kind of coming up in this movie where I'm like, man, he's really good at sustaining tension and that horror creep and the sound design of the plane crashing and the engine wailing and even that moment where Andy Lau kind of comes through the mist to get, the big bad. And there's this sound that kind of accompanies his arrival, his death blow, that it's it really kind of kept reminding me that Oxide Pang's bread and butter is horror, not necessarily action.
I do have to say there's so many convoluted points in this movie, especially towards the end, but there's a little some of it in the beginning too. And so it just kind of makes it a very flawed movie. Which brings us to why some of the critics had very, very harsh words to say about this movie. And I agree with them. Isn't I think it was I can't remember the critic's name, but a very well-known critic in Hong Kong entertainment, I believe. He gave it a 2 out of 5.
Uh-huh.
And so and he was again, he had a lot of issues with the convoluted aspect of this movie. And also he's I guess he's also sick of Andy Lau working on such just taking every role. And he doesn't, but
I think that's a little unfair.
yeah. And basically is well, he's basically saying that Andy Lau should be more choosy with his projects and not just do crap.
I mean, I guess, But I would say, from a script standpoint, if you were to read the script, I don't think this is crap. I think it's a genre. This is a genre. It's an action movie. It's a little bit heightened, and it gets to be a lot bit heightened. I literally thought to myself going in, I'm like, you know what? The first 3/4 of this movie are going to be really solid, and with little niggling things here and there that are kind of eye rolly, but it's going to be pretty great. And then the last half hour is going to be bananas. It is going to be visually and concept wise absolutely bonkers, and it didn't disappoint.
Yeah. I was really confused with the whole, he helps the little kid find the earpiece to the, I don't know, toy walkie-talkie thing, right? And so then he finds it, and then the kid, gets pulled away by his dad and drops the toy, and then his first instinct is to throw the toy away.
Yeah, that was a little strange.
It was so ridiculous, and I'm like, I know you needed it to be hidden for a while, and then he goes back to it to use it to communicate, because all other communication is lost. We get that. You need that tool. But, to throw it away in the trash is absolutely ridiculous. You don't throw away a child's toy because he forgot it.
Yeah, I was also wondering, who did he think he was calling on the toy? It's a weird, I get it, it's a communication device, but you saw a kid playing with his toy earlier, and then he's like, oh, I throw that in the trash. I should go back and get that thing. And then he goes back and he gets it, and he's like, hey, is there anyone there that can help me? Who do you think you're calling?
The kid.
I know, but
the only real option, maybe the kid's dad.
I wish they would have kind of done the introduction of that in the opposite way. Whereas the kid drops the toy, and then as Andy Lau's scrambling around, he finds the toy, and maybe his daughter is already on the comm device being like, hey, can anyone help me? Can anyone help me? Is there anyone out there can help me? She's panicking, and he picks it up and is like, hi? What the hell is this thing?
Yeah, but also she has only ever talked to the kids with that also. So again, the only person that she would assume she'd be contacting is the kid, which literally they were sitting right next to each other, so she would know the kid was right there too. So that also doesn't work.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying it works either way. It was an interesting choice by him to be like, I need information on the terrorists. I'm going to use this kid's toy. Maybe I'll talk to a 5-year-old.
Well, that's the thing. The toy should have been just confiscated or something. And he watched a flight attendant confiscate not that it's a classroom or anything, but at least maybe the dad was like, hey, flight attendant, can you put these toys away? They're driving me bonkers. We'll grab it after the flight. And then somehow Andy Lau had seen it or something, so he knows that these devices are around. And so hoping that he's gonna talk to a flight attendant that,
Yeah.
Just something
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they wanted to get it in the daughter's hands. I get it.
Yeah.
Again, we say it's convoluted for a reason. We understand why they did it. Just the execution is a little eye-rolly.
Yeah.
And it's going to get you dinged by hardcore critics.
Yeah.
Especially once you're taking themselves too seriously.
But just it logically, too.
Yeah, that's a little silly.
But, yeah. Anyway. Also, I had a really big issue with crawling through the air duct or whatever that space is.
Well, okay. Well, you go on your rant first, because I don't mind this as much as you do.
It's just so okay. First of all, Mythbusters already did a thing that busted the whole crawling through the air vent in buildings, right?
As someone who has put lots of actors and characters in air vents, I completely agree with Mythbusters, but also screw you. It's hard to crawl around a building away from bad guys with guns if you don't got air ducts. So, fuck off, we're using them.
But on a fucking plane, is there even such a thing?
Okay, here's where I will defend them a little bit. There are avionics areas in planes because the wiring is somewhere in the plane. all these systems, Wi-Fi, the entertainment system, the air conditioning, the call buttons, like all the things that have to work on an airplane require electricity, requires hydraulics, requires wires running all over the place, and you have to be able to work on those areas. Like engineers and technicians have to be able to crawl in there and go, oh, this wire's frayed. That's why we don't have Wi-Fi on this flight. So I'll give them it to the little bit of a degree. Does it run the entire length of the plane and give you convenient spy places on all of the different cabins? Probably not. Probably not. But I will forgive them just a little bit more than you will, because I do believe that these spaces exist. I don't think they're, first of all, they're way too clean. Like someone, I know it's a new plane, but like someone needed to like sprinkle a coat of dust on this whole thing because it was squeaky clean.
It was squeaky clean.
Like they were wearing booties when they put this plane together because this plane is spotless. I actually buy this actually a little more than the air duct. Like, cards on the table, the air duct thing is utter nonsense. Like, air duct's big enough for a human to get through, and that would also support the weight of a human crawling through them, is the biggest fallacy in all of action cinema. Again, we're going to keep using it. As long as we keep trying to make movies where people have to sneak around buildings, we're going to keep using it. It's complete bullshit. I actually weirdly believe this more.
Okay. Okay.
What did you say at the beginning? If you say so.
If you say so. Yep.
I think the bigger problem is the skydiving flight attendant.
Like, it was so random that she brought it up. Like, it was just so like, oh, like just sitting there, and she's like randomly like, oh, well, I just did my last dive. Now I'm fully, like, or my 200th dive, and now I'm fully able to go it on myself, kind of thing. And I'm just like, really? And I'm like, okay, I'll be waiting for the moment where she has to go skydive.
I thought for a quick second that she was one of the terrorists. When they introduced the idea of the parachuting, I was like, wait, is skydiving flight attendant one of the terrorists? Like, I kind of thought that for a second, and then it showed her, and I was like, oh, okay, obviously she's going to come back later with this.
Yeah. So I don't know if you noticed this, but like there in the beginning, one of the people who like checked in the parachutes and stuff, like they showed the guy, right? And he's like, oh, these are just parachutes, blah, 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 whatever, right? And then like when he became a passenger, he wasn't one of like the number, like, the hijackers. He was like a scared, like.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, that's like because
I didn't notice that at all.
Well, I kept looking at him, and I'm like waiting for him to stand up and be a hijacker, and he's like crouching in the corner, holding tight to like a seat or whatever. And then I thought, like at the end,
like he would like come out of the shadows.
Yeah,
he was the sleeper cell.
Yeah, and he wasn't. It's just like, oh, you guys forgot. Like he was. You chose him to be a hijacker in the beginning when he was checking in the parachutes. And then at the end, he was just a rando, passenger. But anyway.
Someone paid him to check some parachutes, I guess. No, but I thought like they could have at least like buried the lead a little bit on the like parachuting flight attendant, where it was like, hey, are you going to so-and-so to like see that guy you're dating? And she's like, yeah. Or this audition? I'm going to audition and get this part. Oh, cool. I skydive. I was like, what? What? Is this like a comparing our talents time? Like, why couldn't they have just had someone who's a skydiver be one of the passengers? Like, a guy is going to a skydiving competition, and he's like, all like, hey man, I'm like skydiving and shit. Like, look at me.
Or they're what? Oh yeah, I guess they're going back to mainland. I was like, or maybe he came back from like Australia or something and is going. No, I don't know what I'm.
Whatever. I'm just saying, like, you could just make one of the passengers a skydiver. Like, it's like Viggo Mortensen's character in Daylight. Like, he's this expert climber, and he ends up in the tunnel with all the guys, and he's like, all right, I'm going to get us out of here. I'm going to try to climb this tunnel because I'm a climber and I've got all this climbing gear. You're like, he doesn't have to be like a tunnel worker who like moonlights as a climber who just happens to be in the tunnel. No, he was a guy. He was in the fucking tunnel. He's a climber. Who gives a shit? It's weird that she's like also has to be a flight attendant and we have to like meet her at the beginning and stuff. It's strange.
Yeah. Or she can meet one of the passengers and realize that they skydive, and like she gets all excited and it's like, hey, I skydive too. You know, rather than
anything. It was a little silly.
Yeah, it was so like obvious and coincidental and like kind of cringe.
Yeah, that's strange. Well, we haven't gotten to like the biggest part.
Of course. Save the best for last.
I'll also say, like, once we got into this sequence in the movie, like, my brain for real turned off. Because I was like, well, the good part of the movie's kind of over. This is just all going to be kind of sensationalized, overblown. Look what we can do with a green screen and some CG. They were just trying to, like, out-ridiculous themselves. You know what it felt like? It felt like, and there's some American action movies that did this too, where it's like, and then, but then, and you're like, okay, I get it. Like, it's just, there was just one problem after another, and then every time they would solve a problem, it's like, oh my gosh, your daughter is hanging outside the plane. And then he falls out of the plane. And then the bad guy goes through an engine, and then the other bad guy falls, and then the landing gear won't work, and then it's like, okay, all right, calm down, everybody. I can make this movie cost a lot less money if you would just drop all these real dumb ideas.
Yeah. Just that sheer pressure of her like being pulled out of the plane. Like, there's no way she would have been able to grab onto like the.
No. Have you seen the footage of Tom Cruise being strapped to the outside of the plane and he literally can't lift his head? Like, he's strapped in like 6 ways through a harness on the side of a plane as it takes off. And when it takes off, all he has to do is look up, and he can barely use his neck muscles to look up. That's how much pressure is rushing past you when you're on the outside of a jumbo jet.
Yeah.
Sorry, 12-year-old girl, or however old she was, you're not hanging on.
Yeah.
Also, Andy Lau's not climbing back up like the paracord.
Oh, I know.
Like, mustering his way back. Shut up.
Yeah. Also, like, him being on the wheel, and I'm like, shouldn't you be off that by now? They're fucking landing. Like, that, the
landing, you're gonna come up and crush your ass.
I know. It's just, yeah. Anyway, it's just so bad at the end.
My one favorite line in the whole movie, though, is like, they're like, there's no front landing gear. And the one guy is like, what if we like drive a truck out there and like use the truck as the front landing gear? And the guy's like, that could never work. Do you know how heavy a jumbo jet is? And the other guy goes, what about 2 trucks?
I actually was expecting him to say 3, 4, 10.
A fleet. What about 2 trucks? I was like, this actor just said that with a straight face.
Oh, it was so ridiculous. I'm like, wait, what? They just want to put the front of a plane onto a fucking truck?
Which is sad because I don't know what it's from, but I know I've seen this gag before of a jumbo jet or a big plane landing with its front landing gear in the back of a pickup. Whether it was a commercial for like a pickup or it was a movie or a TV show, I don't remember what it was, but I remember this idea already out there in the ether. And so they just like took that idea and just like made it bigger and kind of like weirder and then made the sequence last 15 minutes.
That was I'm like, wait, he's not on the fucking truck yet? It like took forever. And I was like, and in my head, I'm like, Andy Lau, get the fuck back into the plane. Like, why are you just chilling there? Like, you already did your job.
He's got to say, hold now.
It was, I don't know. There was definitely a lot of issues with this.
Yeah, I would say like once you're on the outside of a plane holding on, you're into some strange territory, and sanity has just left the building, and just strap yourself into your seat in the theater and just watch the rest of the movie with your brain kind of half on, because it was exactly like I thought. It was like 3/4 of the movie was pretty grounded and pretty exciting and paced really well. And then, they had to have their big finale, and it had to be sensational and over the top. And yeah, that's what they gave us.
Yeah. I don't know how I felt about the fact that I know what they were trying to do with like bipolar competing with like manic.
They had the same medication, both him and the hijacker. Both had the same medication.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it showed, like, it did like that weird subtitle for Andy Lau's medication, and then it did the same exact subtitle for the bad guy's medication when he pulled it out of his bag.
Oh, okay. So I must have missed that subtitling part, because I wasn't reading subtitles.
Yeah, well, there was a few captions, like they explained what hollow point bullets were, because they're like, oh, by the way, later in the movie when we're shooting a bunch and it's not blowing the side of the aircraft out, it's because they're using this type of bullet. That's why. Like, I thought that was also very funny. I was like, by the way, hollow point bullets, which won't pierce the side of the aircraft, but still be very damaging. It's like, good. Thanks for the network note on that one, big guy.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know how I feel about like how they decide to represent these illnesses.
Yeah, it wasn't very realistic, I guess. I mean, it wasn't. I was questioning the necessity. I guess maybe that's what you're hitting at too.
Yeah.
Is like, why? Like, why couldn't he have just had anger issues and needed anger management? And it was just something we all go through. We get a little riled up and we get angry, and we don't need an illness for the excuse necessarily. And it didn't really play that well.
It didn't, because I also don't think it was like true to the illness.
No. Also, the whole like them using the red and the green filter with like the anger kind of thing was like, I was a little confused about like what like was anger red or was anger green, because they kind of showed it.
Well, it was just literally like,
Yeah,
like the one guy's green and then the one guy's red.
yeah, it was I don't know why.
Yeah.
I would be interested to like, so why? Other than like to protect Andy Lau's character from not just being a road raging asshole who almost got his daughter killed.
I guess so.
Like, that's, oh no, he had a disease that he didn't treat, and then once he started treating it, then he could be a normal human being. And like the bad guy wasn't really treating it because he didn't take his meds. He just took his eye drops. He didn't take his meds, and Andy Lau at the beginning of the flight took his meds, so therefore he's a good guy. I don't know.
That's not right. Anyway, so I also had it like also like when the red and the green came out, I'm like, oh, they're just hulking.
Yeah, it was strange. I think that part was also wholly unnecessary. I don't think convoluted is even really the right term, because it's like it didn't really affect anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I do have to say, like, I did like the acting a lot in it. I kept throughout the whole movie, I kept telling Ryan how much I just really like Choo Choo Show.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm not saying that right, because
you never do.
It's really hard for me because Choo Choo Show.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I can't say it either.
It's like a tongue twister for me. But anyway.
No, he's fantastic.
Oh, he's
really, really good bad guy. Andy Lau's great.
Yeah. It's so nice, like, to watch him, because the last episode that we had done with him in it was Shining for One Thing, and he's this kind of mild-mannered, kind of shy.
So different.
Yeah, and then that now he's like this, hijacker.
Who's really brutal.
Super brutal.
And like very decisive and scheming and smart. Yeah, very different characters, but there was like, he was doing that eye acting thing you always talk about. We were talking about Francis or Tony Leung, where they'll do this very subtle, just almost like an eye twitch.
Yeah.
And there was a shot there where the focus almost racked from this kind of like little eye tingle he had to like his smile of like, don't fuck with me. And I was like, oh, that's good camera work and really specific acting.
Yeah. I love eye acting. It's my favorite.
Good actors act with their eyes.
Yeah. It's funny because like I think a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on good acting is like big, lots of like over dramatic cry scenes and like yelling and like just raging kind of, and that's like, you know, that's good acting. Like to me that's overacting, because like what we forget is that the camera is so close to your face, it picks up everything. So when you overact, it's so over the top because the camera's right there. So I don't think that people, like good actors, need to over accentuate the acting.
Well, I think a lot of times that acting does weirdly, and this is just me now breaking down like facial muscles, but like that big acting comes from the mouth and the cheeks and the jaw and the tightening of everything. And the subtlety comes from the forehead and the eyebrow and the eye and the nose. And because it's hard to overact those things without looking like a lunatic, right? Like
Yeah.
bulging the eyes out of your head or something. And so that subtlety is, it's restrained in a bit. And I think I saw, I can't remember what actor was talking about it. He was saying one of the first movies he did, he got a part that was supposed to be angry and he was just shouting. And a more seasoned actor, I wish I remember who this was. This is a pretty famous guy. And the more seasoned actor kind of came over and goes, "Stop shouting at me. You're angry. But when is the last time you let your anger actually boil over? Play it like someone who's angry but not trying to let their anger boil over. Like someone who's trying to hold back their anger but can't help it."
Yeah.
And the guy was like, "This changed my entire acting career because now I'm playing the restraint of I hate you and I'm so angry, but I just can't bear to be in the same." And it's just, it gives it some gravity. And I think big actors just play that with their chest, you know? "I'm shouting now." It's like, stop shouting.
Yeah.
Humans don't just shout at each other all the time.
Yeah, I agree. So I have a friend that we were talking, this is a long time ago, we were talking about like acting, and at one point like our favorite actor is Soji Sub.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like and a favorite, like for her, I would say more like favorite bias at the time was Soji Sub, because she at one point said Soji Sub can't act. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, he's so good. He's such a good actor. He uses his eyes. Every emotion is conveyed with his eyes, right? And like he this is also kind of like, as I got older, like I kind of stepped away from it because he's so, like, he studies his face a lot, and he's always watching himself in the mirror because he needs to know how his face moves at all times, right? Which is fine. It's like, in my opinion, it gets like a little vain, you know, to a point, but like he's so good with his craft. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. But then, like, her favorite actor as an actor is Hwang Dong-min. He's, I know you've watched him and stuff, but I don't know. I can't remember which one to like remind you.
Okay, yeah,
in.
but either way.
But he is like, he's a good actor, but he's one of those very over the top, large, like actors, right? Where it's like he is so loud and yelling, and like when he's crying it's just all over the place, which is fine, but like he is definitely an over actor, and in her opinion that is good acting.
Yeah, I mean, people have different preferences, and like you definitely sometimes don't pick up the subtleties that people are laying down, and so then it feels like underacting. Like I think Ryan Gosling a lot of times very underacts, and you have to really watch to see the acting. And sometimes I'm like, is he actually doing anything, or is he just staring? Because this could either be subtle or he's doing nothing.
I forgot that it was that we were talking about it, because I think he's a good actor and you don't think he is.
I don't think he's a bad actor. I just think he gets a lot of credit sometimes for not doing anything with his face. And you cut to him and his face isn't doing anything, and people are like, "Oh my god, he's so sad." I'm like, is he? Because if the music was saying he was mad, that looks like the same face. Is he just doing anything with his face? I think he's a great actor, but I sometimes think he gets credit where maybe credit isn't due.
I don't know. I like early Ryan Gosling. I haven't really seen much of his stuff now.
Listen, we're getting a little off the topic. Ryan Gosling is not in this movie.
That's true.
As much as you want him to be with Andy Lau in this movie, he's not.
Do I?
I don't know.
We are talking about Choo Choo Shell, actually.
Okay. Yeah. No, he was great. I thought everyone played their roles really, really well. I thought the worst acting in the entire thing, luckily, is the smallest part of it, which is the kind of CEO's wife and the bad cops that we don't really see that much of. And like she's just crying and wailing the whole time, and like the little snivelly guy who's like selling him out, it's just kind of like caricature-y, like, but it's such a small part of the movie. You just like, yeah, whatever, yada yada, act however the fuck you want, I don't care.
Yeah. I was also making fun of Eric Cho because, like, I'm like, why is he in this movie? Like, that character could have been anyone. And then, like, his song came up, and I was like, oh, that's why.
Well, he had to be in the movie to get the soundtrack.
I guess so, but it was interesting. I'm like, oh, he's in this movie just to die.
He didn't die, though.
No, he didn't.
No, he got shot for his beloved, and then she's like, okay, fine, I'll date you. All you have to do is take a bullet for me, and then I will date you. I'm sorry, dude, that's a red flag. If the girl is asking you to take a bullet for her, ick.
I'm sorry, but all women are asking their men to take a bullet for them.
Hard pass.
I don't know.
Pick something else.
All significant others expect their significant other to take a bullet for them, I feel like.
I will walk on the outside of the street where the cars go. That's about it.
Ew.
The bullets, when they start flying, no promises.
That's some bullshit right there.
You know? It's every man for himself in this tough world we live in.
Oh, God.
Are we ready to rate this thing?
Yes. I would rate it on board karaoke. I enjoyed it enough. And it kept my attention. I wasn't like, oh, I'm just ready for this movie to end. I, again, really, really like Choo Choo Shell. And of course, Andy Lau has been my number one for so many years. And I like Lo Ta. I like the girl. She's in everything. Like, I've watched her since she was a child. Because she's a child actor. And then, so really good cast. On board karaoke, because there are definitely those moments where I'm like, dang, this is real out of tune.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I think it deserves more than stepping out to get fresh air, because I did find myself enjoying most of it. And I hate describing movies this way, but it's probably pretty apt, which is, it's kind of a fun ride. It's not going to change your life stepping in this movie and watching it. It's just kind of a fun ride. If you got 2 hours, go see it. It's fun. And why not? So that's kind of how I feel with onboard karaoke, is it's kind of fun. Why not? So this week's rec is a book, and I guess it's staying on the airplane theme. This isn't really a book about a hijacking, but it's a book about Michael Crichton, who's probably most famous for writing Jurassic Park and things like that. It was called Airframe. I believe it was 1996, and it's a movie, or it's a book that it's actually one of the few Michael Crichton books that didn't get made into a movie. I think at some point someone bought the rights to it, but it's basically about kind of a fictitious Boeing, and they have a horrible turbulence almost causes an airplane crash, and then these people have to come together and figure out what happened and why, and there's fraud and lies and intrigue and embezzlement and all this stuff that happens when you have a very powerful company with government contracts and all the stuff that happens from that. So I went into that book not expecting anything other than Michael Crichton knows how to write, and it's really, really engaging. And I finished it, I think, in like 2.5 days. It was just, I sped through it. I thought it was really, really good. So check that out. Airframe by Michael Crichton.
Yep. And that is it for us this week. Definitely tune in for our last episode
of this year
next week.
Until then, thank you so much for listening.